Welcome back to the Premier League prediction, where I predict the weekend's results and we have a little preview of what's going to happen over the weekend. Starting off with our first game, Chelsea versus Fulham. Now, this could be an interesting one. Fulham have been alright so far this season. However, Chelsea, they couldn't really manage it on the first day against Palace, but last week against West Ham, they were on fire. But is it because they're on fire because West Ham are useless, or is it because Chelsea are brilliant? Obviously, Chelsea probably won't have Cole Palmer after he got injured last week in the warm-up against West Ham. So if they don't have Cole Palmer, they're not necessarily going to be as creative. But I do think with Chelsea being at home and the way they played last week, I do think Chelsea will edge this and score a few goals. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. I think Fulham will probably get one. So I'm going to say it's probably going to be about 3-1 Chelsea, but I think Chelsea will win. Next up, we have Manchester United versus Burnley. Now, honestly, this is the game that is probably the hardest to predict because, I mean, we have Man United who could turn up and play well, or we could have Man United who got beat by Grimsby in midweek, who could be useless. Amorim doesn't seem to know what he's doing with the tactics. And then we have Burnley, who looked dreadful on the opening weekend. They looked alright against Sunderland and got the win. And it is Man United defending. It is at Old Trafford, so surely the crowd will boo a bit. But it's a really tough one. You know what? I'm going to go for a draw. I think it's going to be a draw. I think Mbemba will probably score a goal and Burnley will probably have a goal, and it'll be a draw. Or there'll be some sort of goalkeeping howler is the reason why Burnley get a draw. So I'm going to go for a draw in this fixture. Next up, we have Sunderland versus Brentford. And I think, unfortunately for Sunderland, I think this is going to be a Brentford win. And the reason I think it's going to be a Brentford win is because, A, they played fantastic last week and their new striker fit in really well. B, they have a class goalkeeper in Keller who will be able to keep clean sheets. And C, Sunderland obviously losing Ballard at the back last week to injury completely stuffed over their defence, and he was the main reason on the first week they did so well and the main reason why they didn't do very well against Burnley. So for this reason, I think it's going to be a Brentford victory. Tottenham versus Bournemouth next. Now, Tottenham have just announced they've signed Xavi Simons, so putting him into the Tottenham squad, he's obviously not going to be in tomorrow, but having that good feeling wave, especially with the fans, they're at home, they're going to be cheering loudly, and the fact that they've come off beating Man City, and I can't remember who they beat on the opening weekend. This Tottenham team looks fierce. Attacking wise, they are so good. Defensively, as with Mickey van der Ven and Romero, they are solid at the back. This is a proper team. Bournemouth, on the other hand, they've been playing well. Semenyo could do something in attacking wise for them, but I just think Tottenham are going to have far too much for them. I think Tottenham may get a big scoreline as well. I think we could see another 3-0, maybe 4-0. If Bournemouth will score, maybe with Semenyo, so maybe a goal for them, but I think Tottenham are going to cruise past Bournemouth. Wolves versus Everton next. Now this is another interesting one. Wolves played alright last weekend. Everton looked much better, but was it their luck of their new stadium? Because Brighton really should have hammered a few past them. Pickford was amazing in goal last week. So if Pickford plays like he plays last week, and then Jack Grealish continues to find this old form he used to have, then Everton could do a bit here. It's going to be a close game. A draw is probably the realistic result, but I'm going to be hopeful for Everton and I'm going to edge them winning it, and I think Jack Grealish will play a massive part in doing so. The final game on Saturday sees Leeds United versus Newcastle United, and I think this one is going to be a demolition job. I think Newcastle are going to come and destroy them. I think they're going to bring that spirit, even though they were sucker punched by Liverpool in the last minute. That spirit of being able to come from 2-0 down will come with them. They've got all that exciting news that they're going to sign a striker as well. Things seem to be looking up on Tyneside, other than obviously there's a couple of injuries and Gordon getting sent off wasn't ideal, but I think Will Asula will have a big point to prove this weekend, and I think he'll probably get a goal. I think Newcastle will just outclass Leeds in the midfield. So I'm going to go for a big Newcastle win, even though it's being played at Leeds. On to Sunday, and we start with the opening game, which is Brighton versus Manchester City. Now, this could be, this is another difficult one to predict. Brighton last week looked insane. They had some really good moves, but just couldn't seem to get the ball past Jordan Pickford. If they somehow manage to find the net this time and improve their aim, then they can put a few past Man City. Man City looks shaky against Tottenham. I don't think they're all clicking just yet. So with it being Brighton at home, I think Brighton might do something here, so I'm going to predict a draw for this one. I think a draw is probably a reasonable result. Then we come to Nottingham Forest versus West Ham, and I'm not being funny, but West Ham were useless in midweek. They were useless last week, and Forest have a solid team. They know what they're doing, and we know from last week if it's not working out for Forest, their manager is good enough to change it mid-game to make sure they get a point or win, but I can only see this going one way, and that is a big win to Nottingham Forest. Then we come to the big game of the weekend, which is Liverpool versus Arsenal. This is going to be one tasty fixture. Arsenal look incredible going forward and defending. Liverpool look incredible going forward, but absolutely wide open at the back. But then it's also at Anfield, so that is definitely going to be a big help to Liverpool. So this game's going to be an interesting one. There's going to be goals. I think there's definitely going to be goals. There's going to be goals for both teams. I think realistically it's going to be a draw because Arsenal they don't lose to the big six sides, but they never win either. So I think it's going to be a draw. I think Liverpool will score some nice goals and capitalise, but I think with the way they just open up at the back at the minute, especially with all these new defenders, the way Konate's been playing, the fact that Kirkes looked like he didn't know how to defend the ball last week as well. I think this one is going to be a draw, and I think it'll be like a Ekatike goal or some sort of last minute goal from like Salah, or maybe even Rio and Gamoa comes on and scores another one, or Chiesa. So I think it'll be a draw, probably like a 2-2 draw though. And the final game of the weekend is Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. Now Aston Villa haven't been clicking this season so far. They just can't seem to score a goal. Crystal Palace look in good shape, but obviously they're losing. People still aren't sure about if Mark Gay will be staying, but they've got a really decent manager and they're playing some decent football. So I think this one will probably end up with a Palace win. I think Aston Villa just haven't clicked, and I think Palace will have enough to get past them. So there are my predictions. Do you agree with them or do you not? Let me know what you are predicting for this week in the comments.